Alice in Wonderland has been reinterpreted in many ways through the years, be it through movie, game, or song. All classics in their own way, all interpretations of the famous tale by Lewis Carroll. And Japan seems to be especially fascinated by it. There are so many anime, games, manga, and other Japanese media inspired by this concept of a little girl wandering into a world that is not quite like her own. So today I'm here to tell you what, in the midst of all of these Alice-inspired shows, makes 2016's Flip Flappers stand out, and what about it makes it pretty cool. Flip Flappers tells the story of Cocomine Kokona, a bored, seemingly ordinary middle schooler. Her life gets thrown upside down when Paprika, a strange girl with brightly colored hair, shows up and drags her onto an adventure that has both of them visiting a strange, snow-covered place, not quite anywhere that belongs in this world. Pretty generic so far. It's the classic girl meets girl formula, which generally describes Flip Flappers rather well, as the story is centered on the relationship between these two very different girls, the serious and straight-laced Kokona and the carefree childlike Paprika. But it's in its technical qualities that the show shines perhaps beyond its premise. Right from the first episode, the show just absolutely drags you in, not only with perfectly paced directing, but also with striking visuals. The entire thing has this wonderful pastel-colored look to it, similar to the artwork featured on those future best songs on YouTube. These visuals, accompanied by great animation and banging soundtrack, bring the world to life, as you explore, in a semi-episodic fashion, not only these worlds, but also the two main characters themselves. And right from the first episode, one of the show's more interesting thematics becomes evident. The show is absolutely filled with metaphors for sexuality. Kokona is, after all, a teenager going through a period of many changes and self-discovery, and the show represents this in various downright Freudian ways. For example, in the previously mentioned episode 2, Kokona grows bunny ears and teeth, and gets this incessant craving for biting on objects. You follow her as she goes around biting different things, and she realizes that some things feel better to bite than others, some downright giving her pleasure. I mean, the metaphor for sexual experimentation is quite obvious here, and like I said, it's one of the show's main themes. This theme is also present in Kokona and Paprika's relationship, as since they're mostly by themselves in this adventure, a certain sexual tension tends to spring up between them. And you know, if you're into that even for less scholarly reasons, it does add another layer of enjoyability to the show. Another great episode following this thematic is a horror-themed one, where they find themselves stuck in a time loop inside of a very spooky all-girls academy, filled with lilies everywhere, and each time the loop happens, Kokona becomes more and more filled with lust, but also gayer? Every time the loop happens, she surrenders more and more to her sexual desires, eventually not being able to think of anything else, and she finds that any attempt to go against it ends with her creepy, faceless classmates interfering. It's a very fun, creepy, and delightfully weird episode, and it's just one of many different worlds they visit.
ややか、鐘が鳴り終わる前に帰れって。どうしたの？
I mean, there's the whole magical girl aspect I haven't talked about yet. I mean, yeah, this is a magical girl show, by the way. Kokona and Paprika are both able to transform into battle-ready attire, complete with a great, classic magical girl transformation, which, I mean, you gotta love. There's even an episode that is a homage to Mad Max, by the way, if you didn't think the show was weird enough by now. And, of course, their magical girl transformations, in a very Madoka-like way, are affected by their feelings, which incorporates another dimension to the narrative, as the whole sexual and emotional aspect of the story becomes tied with the fight scenes themselves. The show was animated by Studio 3HZ, which is a rather peculiar one. They more or less showed up out of nowhere a few years back, and with many anime original works with surprising quality for a new studio like Princess Principal and Flip Flappers itself, have gained quite a name for themselves. They are also responsible for the anime adaptation of the absolutely excellent gun game online alternative, which I really have to make a video about one day. Be it for the Freudian Yuri bait, for the episodic exploration of fantastic worlds with a beautiful art style and animation, or for the mysterious overarching plot, which I'm happy to say, by the way, doesn't disappoint, unlike many shows similar to it. I think there's something in Flip Flappers for nearly anyone to enjoy, and that's what I think makes it pretty cool. Now, before I end this video, I want to enter a strange anecdote, so bear with me. To enter the fantastic worlds they visit in the show, the girls have to get inside a defunct elevator, referred to as a Thomason in the show. Back when it was airing, I had the opportunity to read a comment from an architect who was watching it, and he pointed out how a Thomason is a concept in architecture, which I will now explain. Has this video been a thinly veiled excuse to talk about this? Perhaps. But anyway, a Thomason refers to a piece of infrastructure that is still maintained despite being completely useless. Like, for example, the derelict elevator they enter, or maybe something like a fire hydrant that doesn't work anymore. Or perhaps something more glaringly obvious like a door that leads nowhere or a completely useless stairway. Hilariously, the concept's name comes from the baseball player Gary Thomasson, who was signed to the Japanese Yomiuri Giants for a hefty fee, but despite his inflated salary, ended up being not much more than a glorified bench warmer, doing almost nothing during his stay with the team. It was based on this that the Japanese artist Genpei Akasegawa coined the term back in the 80s. Thomassons are considered a form of hyperart, whatever that means, and I find them rather fascinating. There's something tranquil, something interesting about an object that is maintained in spite of its complete uselessness. In a world where everyone strives for so much efficiency, it's comforting to see something which has its only use in being useless. It falls right into the Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi, which exalts the beauty in what is imperfect. So the next time you're walking on the street, try looking for Thomassons. Trust me, it makes for a fun little game, to find something that is completely useless, beautifully so. And to think that if I hadn't watched this show, I would have never learned about it. Who says nothing good comes from watching anime? If you listened so far to my ramblings about postmodern art and about the show itself, you have my thanks. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like to help me out, and subscribe if you like more. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.